All right, guys, this is a quick 15-minute review of the immune system. First of all, I'm going to talk about two parts of your immune system. And the first one of those we're going to deal with is the non-specific or innate immune system. This you're born with. It protects you against things just in general. The most important part of that by far is the skin, which is obviously like a barrier. You might think of it like your Great Wall of China. Keeps things out. It also has secretions, though, that actively fight off infections. Some of those are acidic, some are antibacterial. Urea, the same stuff that's in your urine, is also toxic to a lot of germs. You also have inflammation, or the inflammatory response. When cells are damaged, some cells in the area of damage release the cell signal, sort of like a 911 call, called histamine. And that causes the blood vessels in the area of the damage to vasodilate. That brings in more white blood cells, more platelets. It helps to fight infections and cause clots and things like that. I'll also mention interferon, which is a protein in your body's fluids that helps to interfere with the lytic cycle, the cycle of virus reproduction. Another part of the non-specific immune system is stomach acid. The pH of the solution in your stomach is about 2. That's acidic enough to denature just about any kind of protein. Your normal flora are also important. These are the bacteria that line your intestinal tract. They line the reproductive tracts of females. And they essentially keep other things from growing there because there's so many of them. Tears and saliva have this chemical in them called lysozyme, which helps to kill viruses and bacteria and other infectious agents. Your mucous membranes are good filters to keep certain things from getting in your respiratory tract and other body openings. And then we'll also mention pyrogens, which are chemicals which help to cause you to get a fever. And once you have a fever, your immune system actually works more effectively. Now we're going to switch over and talk about the other main part of your immune system, which is the specific, or sometimes it's called acquired immunity. This you have to develop over your life. We're going to talk about two main parts of that. The first part we'll talk about is called antibody-mediated, or sometimes humoral immunity. It's called humoral because antibodies are these big proteins. They can't get into your cells. They can only help you if the germ they're fighting is in the body's fluids or between the cells, maybe in the blood. In antibody-mediated immunity, first of all, some type of phagocytic cell, like a macrophage, engulfs the germ. It breaks that germ down through the process of intracellular digestion. It'll then take some of the antigens from that germ and display them on its own cell surface on a protein called an MHC class II protein. This is called antigen presentation. Other cells called helper T cells come in and physically bind to that antigen. And I said in class they sort of go Helen Keller on it. They figure out what it looks like, how it works. And once they do that, they send out their own chemical signals called interleukins. These are messages between white blood cells. These go out and stimulate other helper T cells and B cells that are specific to this one particular antigen. Most of the stimulated B cells become plasma cells. They have a lot of rough ER in them, which means they're good for making proteins and exporting those out. And the proteins they're making are antibodies. Antibodies that are specific to just this particular antigen. Those antibodies will bind to that antigen and they'll help your body to get rid of it. They'll either cause it to clump up. They may act as almost like a handle that other things can use to escort this germ out the urinary system. Or they may be sort of like a mark for death, and they can attract things like macrophages to this particular germ to kill it. A few of the cells, though, are left behind as memory cells. That includes B cells and T cells, so that if you ever get this infection again, your immune response will be a whole lot faster, a whole lot larger, so fast and so large that you probably won't ever get symptoms the second time, and so on. The other part of the specific immune system we'll mention is cell-mediated immunity. This part of your immune system helps you fight off infections. It helps you kill your own cells that have an intracellular infection, an infection inside them. All of your cells have a protein on their surface called an MHC class 1. The antigens that get displayed on this protein are antigens from inside the cell. So if the cell is healthy, they're just going to be normal antigens. But if the cell has some kind of infection inside, then a lot of the proteins are going to be proteins from that infection. Usually it's going to be a virus kind of protein. Helper T cells will once again dock for that MHC class 1. If they detect a foreign protein, an antigen, they'll send out interleukins. Again, messages between white blood cells. Those interleukins will stimulate other helper T cells and another type of cell called the cytotoxic T cell, specific to that one antigen. We said that the helper T cells are sort of like the Paul Revere's of your immune system. They're sending out the warning. The cytotoxic T cell you might think of sort of like the Wolverines of your immune system. They go out to any cells that are displaying those antigens, those foreign antigens, and they basically poke holes in their cell membrane, kill them. That way those cells can't pass on the infection to other cells. Once again, though, memory cells are left behind, so that if you ever get this infection again, you can fight it faster. So fast you don't usually get symptoms. The very last thing I'll mention is this. The first time you get an infection, your immune response is called your primary immune response. And notice that it takes a while for your body to make very many antibodies. And they don't ever make a huge amount. By the time the antibody level gets to this particular point, the infection's probably over. Notice your antibody levels slowly drop. But what's left behind are memory cells. If you ever encounter that same exact germ again, like we did right here in this picture, those memory cells cause your immune response to be way faster, way larger, so much faster, so much larger, you probably don't get sick the second time. And that second response, the second time you've encountered a germ, that's called your secondary immune response. Hope that helps.